Welcome, everybody. My name is Naomi Shah, and I'm the chair of the Research Career Development Committee for the American Academy of Sleep Medicine Foundation. Today, I'll be giving a brief presentation on plans and statement of mentors and co-mentors documents that you would need to prepare for an NIHK award. I'm based at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai in New York City. So these are the two funding opportunity titles, just for your reference. This is where most of the information that I have taken for today's presentation comes from. And these are updated periodically. There's an expiration date, so just to take a look at the most recent one whenever it is that you're viewing this presentation. And this one is recorded in 2024, but if there's a newer version, please keep an eye out for that. So let's talk a little bit about the plans and statement of mentors and co-mentors and the documents that are required for the K Award for this specific topic. The bottom line is that the candidate must name a primary mentor who, together with the candidate, is responsible for planning, directing, monitoring, and executing the proposed program. And the candidate may also nominate co-mentors as appropriate to the goals of the program. So typically, if you have a group of 3 mentors and co-mentors, depending on the different areas of expertise they represent and the different mentoring aspects that they cover, you will have to designate a primary mentor that takes responsibility. And then there are co-mentors who will help guide you through the K Award. The mentor should have sufficient independent research support to cover the cost of the proposed research project in excess of the allowable costs of this award. So what that means is that you need to have the ability to demonstrate that your mentor has independent funding, typically in the form of an R grant or R equivalent grant, which will provide you some excess support, such as statistician, or others, other related support. All of this information should be mentioned in the mentor's statement. And then you also want them to include a statement that the candidate will commit at least 9 person months, which is 75% of full-time professional effort to the career development program and related career development activities. This is crucial. This needs to be stated more than once in all of the co-mentors or mentors statements and even in the institutional support. So this is very basic, but it's still important to cover. The second thing is that the application must include a statement from the mentor providing all of these. First, there has to be information on your mentor's research qualifications and previous experience as a research supervisor. So typically this is in the form of sharing their personal research portfolio, their current grant funding, and previous experience as a research supervisor. So, for example, I have mentored and trained X number of fellows, residents, and faculty, and X percentage of these have funding, of which Y percentage have a K award or a career development award. So very clearly demonstrating the number of grants that somebody has, but more importantly, how many people they've trained and supervised in a research setting, and how many have actually received funding. It could be a foundation grant for those that are sort of early in their mentoring career, but ideally they're looking for folks that have mentored people with a K award. But of course, there's always the first person that you will have to train, or your mentor will have to train. So again, demonstration that there is experience and success as a research mentor / supervisor. The second piece is a plan that describes the nature of the supervision and mentoring that will occur during the proposed award period. So it's very simple, when and how these supervision and mentoring meetings are going to occur, and how your mentor is going to be able to mentor you during your K award. The statement also needs to have a plan for career progression for the candidate to move from the mentored stage to independent research investigator status during the project period of the award. So over the period of the 5 years of a K award, the statement really, your mentor statement really should mention how they will take you from where you are now to how you will be ready for applying for your R01. And then finally, a plan for monitoring the candidate's research, publications, and progression towards independence. So, typically this is provided in terms of, milestones. So at every 6 months, we will review the research milestones that have been achieved by the candidate, which will include the publication record, progression on the research project, and then of course, eventually progression towards independence, which will be submitting the R01 and how the training and the career development and the research project are helping you get there. Similar information must be provided by all your co-mentors. So needless to say, your mentor, your primary mentor does all of this, but then your co-mentors' letters and statements also have to provide this level of detail. If more than one co-mentor is proposed, the respective areas and expertise and responsibility of each should be very clear. So say, for example, you're putting in a grant on sleep and cardiovascular disease. If you have 3 sleep mentors and you have no cardiovascular disease mentors, that might be a little bit of a red flag. Well, why do you need 3 sleep mentors? And that's okay if you have 3 sleep mentors. Maybe one is doing work on the sleep physiology. The other one is a clinical sleep physician. And the third could be somebody that's more technical, but really explaining that is key in order for you to ensure that there is a reason why that co-mentor is a co-mentor. And then it's important to also then carve out their responsibility. Are they going to train you on the technical aspects? Are they going to train you on the physiology? Or are you going to be able to understand the more of the clinical aspects of conducting research in a clinical patient population? So again, all of those need to be clearly articulated in your co-mentor statements. The co-mentor should clearly describe how they will coordinate the mentoring of the candidate. So you have 3 co-mentors. How are they going to meet? Are they going to meet with you individually? Are they going to meet with you together as one lab meeting? How often is it going to occur? And then how are they going to communicate your progress to each other? So typically there's meetings one-on-one, there's usually meetings as a group, and then there's usually meetings of just the mentors, or if you have an advisory committee, then the advisory committee can meet with your mentors as well. If any co-mentor is not located at the sponsoring institution, a statement should be provided describing the mechanism and frequency of communication with the candidate, including the frequency of face-to-face meetings. So if you have a mentor that's miles away where you would have to drive a few hours or get on a plane and get there, you really want to make sure that it's clear that there's going to be ongoing communication and that you will have face-to-face meetings once a year, twice a year, whatever it is that's feasible, or more often if possible. But with Zoom and other features that are now available, or technology that's now available, you could make the argument for a sort of a twice a year face-to-face meeting. The primary mentor must agree to write and provide annual evaluations of the candidate's progress as required in the annual progress report. And then the mentor or mentoring team must provide evidence of expertise, experience, and ability to guide the applicant in the organization, management, and implementation of the proposed clinical trial, ancillary or feasibility study, and help him, her, or them to meet the timelines. And this is needless, this is pretty basic, but all of this needs to be very clearly stated in the document. All of the things I said apply to page 23's NK08. The only exception is this. This is when you look at the PAs that I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation. This was not in the K23, but it is listed in the K08, so I just thought I'd review that here. If the applicant is proposing to gain experience in a clinical trial as part of his or her research career development, the mentor or a member of the mentoring team must include a statement to document leadership of the clinical trial and appropriate expertise to guide the applicant in any proposed clinical trials research experience. So now let's talk a little bit about how all of this is reviewed. So mentors, co-mentors, consultants, collaborators, what are the review criteria? I thought this would be important because some of this can also be included in the mentor and co-mentors statements, which is what this presentation is about. So with that in mind, let's just review the criteria that your reviewers are going to be using. So the first is, are the qualifications of the mentors in the area of the proposed research appropriate? So again, what you're proposing and your mentor's experience, expertise in the research domain have to match. And if they are not perfectly aligned, but you see how they are aligned, it's your job and your mentor's job to make sure that's clear in the research strategy and the mentoring and career development activities document that you will draft, and then in the mentor statement that your mentors will draft. Does the mentor adequately address the candidate's potential and his or her strengths and areas needing improvement? So again, another important element that is part of the review criteria. Is there adequate description of the quality and extent of the mentor's proposed role in providing guidance and advice to the candidate? So, again, you want to make sure that this is described adequately, how, the quality and extent of the mentor's proposed role in providing guidance and advice to the candidate is clear. Is the mentor's description of the elements of the research career development activities, including formal coursework, adequate? That's another domain. So, again, does the mentor describe how you're going to get the training and how your career is going to develop over the course of the K award? That needs to be clear. The next review criteria is there evidence of the mentor's previous experience in fostering the development of independent investigators. So ideally, have they really trained people and mentored people who have gone on to become independent investigators? And anytime you put down something like this, like, yes, my mentor has done that, or if your mentor says, I have trained folks and they have become independent investigators, ideally you want to give them names. It's even better if you can give them the total number of people, what kind of projects, how successful they were, meaning did they get an R, did they get other grants? Again, details, really important. It helps people fully understand the scope and breadth of the mentoring capacity. And then the next review criteria is there evidence of the mentor's current research productivity and peer-reviewed support? So again, always important to have mentors who have active research funding, are productive, and have published with you ideally, but also published in the space that you're proposing the research. Other review criteria is active pending support for the proposed research project appropriate and adequate. So again, if your mentor is studying sleep and cardiovascular disease, that's great because that's where your proposal is sort of is within that space. So that is great because the support for the proposed research project is appropriate and adequate. Are there adequate plans for monitoring and evaluating the career development awardees' progress towards independence? Again, you want to make sure that it's listed when and how you're going to meet, what milestones you're going to be reached at what point, whether it be in the form of the research project milestones, recruitment, retention, publications, presentations at national meetings, learning the necessary methodology or the skills or the proposed research training, whatever it is that the scope of the work is in your research project. You have to be able to demonstrate how this will be monitored and evaluated by your mentoring committee. And then does the mentor or mentoring team have the expertise, experience, ability to guide the applicant in the organization, management, and implementation of the proposed clinical trial or study? And we saw the same criteria in the statement. The only difference here is that in the K08, if the applicant is proposing to gain experience in a clinical trial as part of his or her or their research career development, is there evidence of the appropriate expertise, experience, and ability on the part of the mentor to guide the applicant during participation in the clinical trial? So this is just an additional review criteria that I found in the K08. So with that, I'm going to stop the presentation. I hope this was useful. The bottom line is really provide details of your mentor's experience in working with other mentees and their success in getting a K award and maybe even an R or an independent, become an independent investigator, how their expertise matches your currently proposed project, and then again, giving a timeline of measuring the outcomes or the productivity, not just of yourself and your career development training, but also of the research project. If all of this is clear in the mentor statement, then that's really going to yield a very high score on those documents. And I hope you found this helpful. And thank you so much and good luck with your application.